Hello, my friend. Before breakfast, let me just read a few pages, if I could. I'll just try. So, I was reading about sorting people and things, comparing them, and putting them in categories. 能不能帮我把灯打开一下 Let me just read the把灯这边灯打开就好了。Hold up. Let me see. Let me just read from here. We like to think we judge people as individuals, and at times we consciously try very hard to evaluate others on the basis of their unique characteristics. We often succeed, but if we don't know a person well, our minds can turn to his or her social category for the answers. Earlier, we saw how the brain fills in gaps in visual data, for instance, compensating for the blind spot where the optic nerve attaches to the retina. We also saw how our hearing fills gaps, such as when a cough obliterated a syllable or two in a sentence. The state governors met with their respective legislatures convening in the capital city. And we saw how our memory will add the details of a scene we remember only in broad strokes and provide a vivid and complete picture of a face, even though our brains retained only its general features. In each of these cases, our subliminal minds take incomplete data, use context or other cues to complete the picture, make educated guesses, and produce a result that is sometimes accurate, sometimes not, but always convincing. Our minds also fill in the blanks when we judge people, and a person's category membership is part of the data we use to do that. The realization that perceptual biases of categorization lie at the root of prejudice is due largely to the psychologist Henry Tafel, the brain behind the line length study. The son of a published businessman, Tafel would likely have become a forgotten chemist rather than a pioneering social psychologist were it not for the particular social category to which he himself was assigned. Tafel was a Jew, a category identification that meant he was banned from enrolling in college, at least in Poland. So he moved to France. So there he studied chemistry, but he had no passion for it. He preferred partying, or as one colleague put it, severing French culture and Parisian life. His severing ended when World War II began, and in November 1939, he joined the French army. Even less savory was where he ended up. In a German POW camp, there Tafel was introduced to the extremes of social categorization that he would later say led him to his career in social psychology. The Germans demanded to know the social group to which Tocqueville belonged. Was he French? A French Jew? A Jew from elsewhere? If the Nazis thought of Jews as less than human, they nevertheless distinguished between pedigrees of Jew like vintners, distinguishing between the chateaus of origin of soured wine. To be French meant to be treated as an enemy. To be a French Jew meant to be treated as an animal. To admit being a Polish Jew meant swift and certain death. No matter what his personal characteristics or the quality of his relationship with his German captors, as he would later point out, if his identity were discovered, it would be his classification as a Polish Jew that would determine his fate. But there was also danger in lying. So from the menu of stigmatization, Tocqueville chose the middle dish. He spent the next 4 years pretending to be a French Jew. He was liberated in 1945, and in May of that year, as he put it, was disgorged with hundreds of others from a special train arriving at the Gare d'Orsay in Paris soon to discover that hardly anyone I knew in 1939, including my family, was left alive. Tafel spent the next 6 years working with war refugees, especially children and adolescents, and mulling over the relationships between categorical thinking, stereotyping, and prejudice. According to the psychologist William Peter Robinson, today's theoretical understanding of those subjects can almost without exception be traced back to Tocqueville theorizing and direct research intervention. Unfortunately, as was the case with other pioneers, it took the field many years to catch up with Tocqueville insights. Even well into the 1980s, many psychologists viewed discrimination as a conscious and intentional behavior, rather than one commonly arising from normal and unavoidable cognitive processes related to the brain's vital propensity to categorize. In 1998, however, a trio of researchers at the University of Washington published a paper that many see as providing smoking gun evidence that unconscious or implicit stereotyping is the rule rather than the exception. Their paper presented a computerized tool called the Implicit Association Test, or IAT, which has become one of the social psychology's standard tools for measuring the degree to which an individual unconsciously associates traits with social categories. The IAT has helped revolutionize the way social scientists look at stereotyping. In their article, the IAT pioneers asked their readers to consider a thought experiment. Suppose you are shown a series of words naming male and female relatives, such as brother and or aunt. You are asked to say hello when presented with a male relative and goodbye when shown a female. In the computerized version, you see the words on a screen and quickly respond by pressing letters on the keyboard. The idea is to respond as quickly as possible while not making too many errors. Most people who try this find that it is easy and proceed rapidly. Next, the researchers asked that you repeat the game, only this time with male and female names like Dick or Jane instead of relatives. The names are unambiguous gender, and again, you can fly through them, but this is just an appetizer. The real experiment starts now. In phase 1, you are shown a series of words that can be either a name or a relative. You are asked to say hello for the male names and relatives and goodbye for the female names and relatives. It's a slightly more complex task than before, but still not taxing. What's important is the time it takes you to make each selection. Try it with the following word list. You can say hello or goodbye to yourself if you're afraid of scaring away your own relatives who may be within earshot. Hello, male name or relative. Goodbye, female name or relative. John, brother, granddaughter, Beth, daughter, Mike, niece, Richard, Leonard, son, aunt, grandfather, Brian, Donna, father, mother, grandson, Gary, Kathy. Now for phase 2. In phase 2, you see a list of the names and relatives again, but this time you are asked to say hello when seeing a male name or female relative and goodbye when you see a female name or male relative. Again, what's important is the time it takes you to make your selections. Try it. Hello, male name or female relative. Goodbye equal female name or male relative. The phase 2 response times are typically far greater than those for phase 1, perhaps 3/4 of a second per word, as opposed to just half a second. To understand why, let's look at this as a task in sorting. You are being asked to consider 4 categories of objects: male names, male relatives, female names, and female relatives. But these are not independent categories. The categories male names and male relatives are associated. They both refer to males. Likewise, the categories female names and female relatives are associated. In phase 1, you are asked to label the 4 categories in a manner consistent with that association, to label all males in the same manner and all females in the same manner. In phase 2, however, you are asked to ignore your association, to label males one way if you see a name but the other if you see a relative, and to also label female terms differently depending upon whether the term is a name or a relative. That is complicated, and the complexity eats up mental resources, slowing you down. That is the crux of the IAT. When the labeling you're asked to do follows your mental associations, it speeds you up. But when it mixes across associations, it slows you down. As a result, by examining the difference in speed between the two ways you are asked to label, researchers can probe how strongly a person associates traits with the social category. For example, suppose that instead of words denoting male and female relatives, I showed you terms related to either science or the arts. If you had no mental association linking men and science or women and the arts, it wouldn't matter if you had to say hello for men's names and science terms and goodbye for women's names and art terms, or hello for men's terms and arts terms and goodbye for women's names and science terms. Hence, there would be no difference between phase 1 and phase 2. But if you had strong associations linking women and the arts and linking men and science, as most people do, the exercise would be very similar to the original task, with male and female relatives and male and female names, and there would be a considerable difference in your response times in phase 1 and phase 2. Okay, I gotta stop right now. I still haven't had breakfast yet. Alrighty, thanks for reading. It was so enjoyable, and I fell in love with this book again. It's such an amazing book by Mlodinow, Leonard Mlodinow. Highly recommend if you're interested in psychology and how we get all these findings. Read this book. Alright, 停止录像。